Hello, I'm Kieran Lynch and welcome to OviCast, the Teagasc Sheep podcast. Each episode will bring latest insights, advice and technical updates for the sheep industry. In this week's episode we catch up with Patrick Dunne. He's a participant in the Teagasc BETTER Farm Sheep programme. He runs a hill and lowland flock in County Wicklow, and we're going to discuss with him how OPA or Ovine Pulmonary Adenocarcinoma has had an impact on his flock and how he's been addressing it over the past number of years. Very honest conversation. Patrick goes back a number of years to explain what impact it was having on the flock and the lack of awareness of what was causing it at the time. He discusses how he went about getting a diagnosis, and we discuss how he enlisted the services of vet Patrick Grant to screen the flock to detect ewes with infection at an earlier stage using ultrasound scanning. Using this information, we discuss how he was able to reduce the level of OPA in the flock and the impact it was having in subsequent years on both the health and productivity from it. Now, just as a slightly longer preamble for those who aren't aware of what OPA is, or to give it its full title, Ovine Pulmonary Adenocarcinoma, it's also been referred to as Jaggsiekete, or maybe more commonly wheelbarrow disease. It's an infectious cancerous tumour that affects the lungs in sheep. The disease is spread through the inhalation of a virus from respiratory secretions, and it is production limiting, and as the condition progresses, the virus leads to the development of multiple tumours in the lungs. As these grow, they lead to the overproduction of fluid in the lungs, and it leads to a nearly always fatal condition. And there is no easy test for it. It does rely on ultrasound scanning to detect ewes showing signs of tumours at an early stage, which allows you to cull those from the flock. It is one of those conditions we refer to as an iceberg disease. We generally only see the tip of it, but there is a large proportion of the population affected, as we will hear from Patrick later on. We're going to start this episode off with Patrick giving us a bit of background to what he was actually seeing in the flock and the kind of impact it was having on performance.
Most obvious thing was the scanning rates were always down. They were a lot lower than we wanted them to be, with an awful lot of dry ewes or barren ewes. So we were trying to investigate what was going on with them, and we were checking for fluke, we were checking for minerals or blood tests, and we were doing loads of things like that, trying to get to the bottom of what was going on. And their scanning rates didn't really improve. That was probably 2016, 2017, the scanning rates didn't really improve. And then into 2018, we started getting, mortality. We started to lose ewes. We were seeing ewes that were thin and they were showing up, but we thought had pneumonia, and it wasn't. We were treating them for pneumonia, but we couldn't seem to cure them. And we started then everything. We heptivac everything in the place. We were vaccinating for pneumonia, and then after ewes started to dead ewes started to turn up. Then we got postmortems done, and that's when the OPA was flagged up first.
And just to go back on that, this isn't a case of flock you weren't looking after or managing. That condition score, we were trying to address that. We started work with you, I think, around 16. It was something you're trying to address with management. The heptivac P went in, you were looking at that pastural pneumonia. I suppose the symptoms, to be fair, were very similar in that early stage when you hadn't it diagnosed.
Yeah, they were. Yeah, from my point of view, it was similar. I thought it was pneumonia. Even mentioned the vets and all, it was all the classic symptoms of pneumonia. The way the ewes were carrying on, the way you'd see ewes with snotty noses. It was coming across. We presumed it was pneumonia. But just normal treatment with antibiotics, the heptivac and vaccine, all that kind of, none of that seemed to work. It wasn't doing that for us. So we were kind of scratching our heads. These are hill ewes, so we were pulling them down a little bit off the hill earlier than we usually would. We were starting to feed a bit of meal pre-tupping just to try and put some condition on them, and that wasn't even working. We just couldn't seem to get condition on a bunch of sheep that we had. And then eventually then when I suppose it was probably a year later before we actually, ewes were getting chronically thin and we started losing ewes. That's when we got the diagnosis of OPA from the vet lab.
Yeah, and look, I suppose that's something you work with your vets on. Yeah, it reached that point where you weren't getting the response you should be getting. So you went with, that was 17, if I'm correct, Patrick. You went with
that was the spring of 18. During the lambing of 2018 was when we really had the problem with mortality. We started really seeing issues with sheep dying.
So what happened then? You went with a couple of ewes to the UCD vet lab at the time, was it?
Yeah, I brought one to start with, and that came back OPA. And then I remember one night, one morning, I came over to the shed, and I had 5 ewes that died overnight in the shed. And I rang up the vet, and he told me to bring them on as well. We hadn't got the first diagnosis at that stage, and then the 6 of them came back together, all positive for OPA. So, look, it's I didn't know anything about OPA at the time. When I Googled it and looked it up and that kind of thing and realised that it was terminal and wasn't curable, or there was no vaccine or anything for it. It was a bit of it was a shock, I suppose. But look, at least once you know what you have, then you can try and do something about it.
It was sobering, and like at that stage, so you were into it a couple of years, you were really starting to see the clinical cases turn up at that stage, and I suppose that's the classic tip of the iceberg. It took a wee while maybe to surface and become more evident.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, like I suppose it made sense once we got the diagnosis. It made sense what had been going on for the last couple of years, and that kind of explained why we couldn't get condition on the O's and why our scan wasn't where we wanted it to be, and the mortality, and kind of a lot of things. It explained a lot of things. A lot of things we'd been trying to correct. We kind of discovered that was probably the root cause all along, and so like as bad as it was getting the diagnosis, I mean, told that the only option was colon, really, but at least it was knowledge was power, as I say. So at least we knew what direction we had to go in. Then
we'll come to how you've been dealing with maybe in a moment, but just to go back slightly. So that was spring of 18. Previous to that, like you were doing all the other management things right, run them in better grass. You were actually at that stage, you were actually splitting off the thin ewes, the ones that looked like they were struggling. You weren't like as a hill flock, you're producing your own placements. You were putting them to a Suffolk ram, keeping them separate. So you that batch of what you expected were problem ewes the whole time, and we're culling harder on that.
Yeah, we had a batch run around that we considered were just softer ewes that weren't sticking the hill. I suppose all along, look, at being a hill flock, we're always going to have ewes that are thin and ewes that don't rear good lambs on the hill, that kind of thing. But that's what we always do with them. That bunch of sheep, we run them with Suffolk rams so that they could, we don't breed from. We don't end up with any ewe lambs from them ewes, so we're kind of naturally breeding them out the system. So we were doing that with that cohort of sheep. The problem was that cohort of sheep was getting bigger and bigger and bigger, and all of a sudden that was nearly a quarter of the flock, that bunch of sheep, and like it wasn't sustainable to keep. Eventually we'd have ended up putting kilograms on most of the sheep for we thought we were doing the right thing at the time by just breeding away from them ewes. We didn't realise that it was actually an underlying issue with the ewes, and that was causing the problem. Like we could have kept weeding out the tin ewes by breeding them off the black rams and that kind of thing, and getting rid of their daughters. But the reality was them ewes weren't going to live anyway. And all they were doing was spreading disease to other ewes. So what we initially thought was a breeding issue, that their ewes just weren't standing the hill, or just a bit too soft for the hill. It turned out it wasn't. It was a health issue.
So I suppose you were doing a bit of direct addressing as much as you could at the time, but you still weren't getting to the root of that problem. I suppose that brings us diagnosis that spring of 2018. That summer, we enlisted the help of Paddy Grant, a vet from Northern Ireland, who is trained how to scan in this and detect OPA at an earlier stage. So Paddy came down that stage, he scanned the entire flock for you in, I think it was June that year, was it? And
yeah, I think it was around June. It was just after shearing time. But we'd asked Paddy, and he said he'd rather do it when the sheep were freshly shorn. I suppose it was easier for him to scan their lungs when there was no wool on them.
Just maybe for anyone who is familiar, and hopefully we'll get Paddy on at some stage to explain this one, but he's basically like you're ordering ultrasound scanner we see for pregnancy scanning. He's scanning the lung on the left and right hand side, and he did the entire flock for you. Now he categorises them into clear ewes, ones with slight suspicion, highly suspicious ewes, and ones that really need to be culled out of it. That scan that first year, you went through your entire flock. I'm assuming everything from hoggets up, you scanned that. What way did they break down?
The way they broke down was, as off the top of my head, we scanned. Now you put me on the spot. So they scanned. I remember there was something about 10% was put down as definite culls. So they had OPA. Then the more highly suspicious ones, where Paddy thought that they could see there's something in the lungs, but couldn't be definite that it was OPA. But there was definitely something wrong in there. There was another 4% for that, and then there was another 4% or so I call slightly suspicious. So they're ones that maybe had pneumonia as a lamb or something, had a bit of scarring in their lung, had some little thing in their lung, but probably wasn't OPA. And then there was only 80% where he gave clean bill of health and said that they were clear.
Okay, so you're looking at something towards 15% of ewes are showing those tumours or showing signs of those tumours that are potentially infecting the rest of the flock. And I suppose, to be fair, from a physical point of view, looking at them ewes, were they all obvious, that 15%?
No, that's the thing. You see, you had the obvious ones that showed up, like those ewes that were thin and that kind of thing, and you were nearly expecting them to be positive, and they were. Some of them were. There was some like 10 ewes that didn't show up positive either. Obviously, they had a different issue. Like everybody has 10 sheep, but there was surprising sheep. There was sheep in it that were mud fat, big, healthy looking sheep, and he was condemning them and saying that they were positive. And like when Paddy was scanning, we were able to see the screen, and like you could like their lungs were bits, and you could see the tumours, so you could see the spots on them. So and afterwards when they got post-mortem, they were all positive as well. So they were, I suppose, they were probably the problem in the flock, because we would have never kept them ewes separate. We would have assumed them ewes were perfectly healthy, and they would have ran around with the rest of the flock and would have been like the silent ones in the flock, infecting everything all around them.
That was
So
for infection.
Yeah, they'd have, exactly, that's the words I'm looking for. They'd have been the reservoir, and they would have kept infecting, and they'd have probably never been culled off, because they appeared perfectly healthy anyway. Without the scanning, we'd have never known to take them away.
And just speaking of culling off, like that 15%, what did you do with them?
I culled all them. That wasn't an easy thing to do at the time. We culled a lot of sheep, but kind of look at the way it was. The way Paddy explained it was them sheep were going to die. They were going to be dead within a year, maybe 2 years anyway, one way or another. So we culled them while they still had some value, because as soon as the ewes really start pining away, they go downhill quite fast. They're hill sheep that we had, so they were never mud fat ewes anyway. But as soon as they start pining away at all, they get pretty worthless in the factory pretty quick. So, we culled them. We culled a lot of sheep. It was over 10% of the flock was culled that time, and I'm hoping that was the right thing. Seems to have been the right thing to do. It kind of cut it off short and sharp.
I suppose that's one of the ways of offsetting the cost of the scanning and the effort of going into doing. You actually getting out ewes at an early stage where you get that salvage cull value on them. Aside from reduced infection, you're getting a return back on those ewes.
Yeah, well, this is it exactly, because, as I say, before we had done the scanning and that kind of thing, our mortality got really high, especially during lambing, and especially when you go back to the hill with lambs. So when ewes were under stress, and that's when the mortality got high. So we were losing a lot of ewes. So at least this way, you got to kill the ewes, you got some cull value out of them. There weren't a whole lot, but at least it was better than just find them dead someday.
So that was the first scan. Look, it was an ongoing thing with you there after. So you were back again in February of the following February, scanning in February of 2019. What kind of levels of infection were you seeing then? So you had culled out, and there was highly suspicious, or the really obvious ones, they're gone out of the flock. On the second scan, 7-8 months later now, how did the flock profile at that stage?
The more or less halved, as in the mortality, or the definite culls had halved. They were down to, or they had way more than halved. I think there was only something like 2% or something of the flock was a definite cull at that stage, and only another maybe 1.5% were what I called highly suspicious. So we'd over 90% that were clear and given a clear bill of health at that stage. Some of the ones, it's about half of the ones that he said were definite culls that time had shown up as slight suspicion 8 months earlier. So I suppose he was still on the right track with them ones. And then there was some sheep that had been clear the last time that showed up this time as being culls as well. So again, we've done the same thing. We culled, but that time the numbers were a lot smaller. But anything that he said was, a cull or a highly suspicious, we sent him on to the factory. And so we got them out of the system.
There is that variable incubation period in it, like 6 months could be up to 2 years, so some of them weren't going to show up. I suppose, and you did touch on this, some of them, in fairness, when they were identified, we followed up with the help of the OVL staff to actually post-mortem the ones that Paddy had identified for cull and suspicious afterwards, and they were, the correlation is very good, the scanning is very accurate, so it's to identify those ewes.
Yeah, no, he seems to be on the right track, because the difference since we done them 2 scans in the flock was huge. Like getting out all them problem ewes, like the difference in our scanning rates, in the condition scoring of the ewes, everything is improved. So he's definitely, it's definitely worth doing. I'd recommend it to anyone, and it's definitely on the right track.
I'm going to come back to that bit with you in a moment. Look, so you dealt with the first aspect. You found out what the problem was. You scanned. You cull out the problem ewes. Just add on to that, like, the replacement ewe lambs of them, you were culling them out as well. I suppose, to be fair, Patrick, your advantage is UVAD recorded, you can link them up, but you weren't keeping any replacements of any of those.
No, I wasn't. I suppose I have the advantage of, because I'm in the better program. I have recording done, so I was able to, any of the ewes that were culled any of the times, I was able to go back, find their daughters, and I pulled them out as well. And just got rid of them as well. Now they weren't just culled there and then, we finished them normally, and so, killed them as young lambs, but we didn't, none of them were retained for breeding here. Because there is a risk of it, if it transferring through colostrum from mothers to daughters, not just from nose to nose, the way it transfers from one young to another.
That close contact is nearly inevitable anyway. Okay, so that brings up to 2019. Unfortunately, COVID kicked in between, so there was a bit of a break in the scanning. You scanned again, though, this July, so we had that gap of the 2 years between it. What was the scan length on the flock at that stage?
The scan was a different thing altogether. This time Paddy came out and scanned. We were scanning away for ages before we found our first positive. We had 5 sheep in the total of the whole flock that he said were positive, and it was only something. There was only another handful that were even down as suspicious or highly suspicious. So I suppose, look at if we maybe got the third scan done earlier on without COVID being affecting it, maybe them few of them picked up earlier on and took out of it, but they've been picked up now and they're gone now as well. So
were those ewes or hoggets, or what were they?
They were hoggets. So there was one older ewe. The rest were hoggets.
They were likely ones maybe missed that scan at 12 months. Your scan never from 12 months up on those occasions, so they were probably the ones you missed.
Scan at younger 12 months because the thinking was the incubation period and it was, over a year, that kind of thing. So we didn't scan ewe lambs or anything younger than 12 months of age. I didn't think there was any point at the time, but that's probably where they were missed because they wouldn't have been scanned.
So, like, that annual scan it's something probably going to be in place on the flock for a number of years to come. Look, you touched on the performance. Let's just set the scene again. If we went back to just prior to the diagnosis, that 2017, your scan rate at the time, I think from looking back at it, about 80% pregnancy rate. So, like, it's well below where it should have been. Even the condition score at that time, like, if we talk about thinner ewes or those less than 3, what kind of proportion of the flock are we looking at?
Well, we talk about the ewes less than 3. Oh God, Kieran, I think it was something like 3/4 of the flock was less than, like, you want them sitting around body condition of 3 really to be in prime condition going to ram to get the best out of them. I think around 3/4 of the flock were less than 3. They were less than where we wanted them, and that was even like giving them an extra bit of grass. That was giving even the thinner ones an extra meal and that was doing everything we could, and we were still sitting at 3/4 of them were less than where you want them.
They're a flock under pressure, and as you said, like, you're doing all the other management things right, but the impact of that health issue. So bring us up to, like, we went to last year or the year previous. What kind of levels are we seeing the pregnancy rate, and maybe how many of those thinner ewes are you looking at in the flock now?
Well, in the thinner ewes, last year, I think the condition scored before we went to the ram. Well, the average of the whole flock was 3. So, more than half the flock were actually over 3. So, it was a completely different kind of a picture. They had pulled up, not a huge amount, but they'd pulled up just enough to be sitting where a hill ewe should be sitting. And into the bargain at that stage, like, I had set up a lowland flock, so them hill ewes were kind of spending an awful lot more time on the hill now than they were back when we started in 2017. So, even though the ewes are actually they have a harder life now than they did then. They're rearing lambs outside on the hill, they're wintering on the hill, and they're still actually in better condition than they were back in 2017. That's been the biggest thing for us here. It's just the ewes are just healthier. They're in better tune or better order. You're getting a better scan with them. And, like this year, like the scan was 1.3. The pregnancy rate was, it was over 90%, I think, off the top of my head. So it's going in the right direction.
It's back to what it should be. And you said, like, you're able to run them hard up. They're doing what they're meant to do without this other issue impinging on them.
Yeah, this is it. You're always going to have thin ewes, and you're always have your fluke and all the other things that crop up on a hill. But at least when that's out of the way, the OPA is kind of more. Hopefully, it's kind of it's in hand anyway. It's square help. It gives you a great head start to get everything else right then.
So we'll go back on it. Getting that correct diagnosis first, and then following up with that ultrasound scanning with Paddy Grant has been the big impact it's had on your flock.
Yeah, this is it. Like I say, we were struggling with thin ewes, and sure, we were only shooting in the dark. Really, we were spending a lot of money, like God Almighty, to be heftifacking ewes constantly. And like, first time you do it, and your booster, then we give them another booster, and then you're treating with antibiotics and giving them mineral doses. We were doing blood tests. We're spending a lot of money on these sheep and trying to improve them constantly, and for the sake of the scanning and what it costs, it was definitely worth it, you know.
No much Adam on the plan in place to deal with. Look, it's something probably there's not enough awareness among hill flocks about it, and flocks in general, but it's not just confined to hill breeds, so it's not, but it's one of those issues that's out there.
Yeah, no, there's definitely that. Before I got it, like when I got the diagnosis back for UCD, I had to Google to see what it was. I knew nothing of it. It was an eye opening to what it was, and then when you read about it and read how easy this actually is spread and that kind of thing, it's kind of frightening. But you know, burying your head in the sand won't make it go away. It's you know, it's something that's there, and you have to keep an eye out for.
Definitely. And look, for anyone that might have it, it's something certainly engage with your vet. That service is available at Paddy Grant. It's something to follow up on. Look, Patrick, great getting you on today. Really appreciate you sharing your story on it. It's always easy to tell the good stuff, but it's not always easy to tell the more difficult stories of how you deal with some of the issues in the flock.
Yeah, I'm sure no bother at all. Look, everyone has issues, I suppose, and everybody has their own things to deal with. But yeah, no, it wasn't a nice thing when we had to go culling sheep at the start. But if we hadn't done it that time, I'm not sure where we'd be now. Where we'd be as good as we are. So yeah, it's probably the right thing to do. Hopefully.
That was one of the things working. Look, great having you on today, Patrick. Thanks very much.
No bother. Talk to you again, Kieran.
We're going to leave the episode there at this point. I'd just like to thank Patrick again for his honesty in discussing what happened in his flock over the last number of years and how he's dealt with it. Again, for anyone suspects or have it, the first point of contact is your local vet. Work up from that. The ultrasound option for scanning and screening those ewes is there, and your local veterinary practitioner will be able to put you in touch with Paddy Grant, who provides the service. That's it for me for this episode. Again, for any updates on our sheep program, keep an eye on our Twitter page at Teagasc Sheep. I'm Kieran Lynch. Thanks for joining us. Don't forget to subscribe and get notified of new episodes.